Hi, I'm Janice Berkebile. Welcome to my Classic Bangle class. This is an intermediate class where you should have a little bit of fusing experience, some annealing experience, and be familiar with a torch. I love this design. You can make it simple and just make a plain bangle, or you can add large hole beads to give it movement. You're gonna love it. For today's class, we're going to use some tools, and included in those tools are a tape measure, a flush cutter, a chain nose plier, and a Sharpie marker. We're also going to need a brass head mallet, a bench block, a sandbag, a tiny dapping punch, an asterisk design stamp, and a spiral design stamp. One of the other tools we'll use for this project is a metal bracelet mandrel. The reason that we use the metal bracelet mandrel is because you need to have support when you hammer the wire on the mandrel. The wooden mandrel will not support it. All metal bracelet mandrels are not created equally. This one is very thick and really heavy, and that's the good news, because if it's just a thin wall of metal, it's going to be really tinny and it's just horrible on your ears. The frets hammers that you will need today are the planishing hammer, the short sharp hammer, the narrow rounded raising hammer, and the chasing hammer. For the fusing process, we're going to use 2 fire bricks, one that I keep at the full size and one I cut down to in quarters. I actually only use 3 of them. We'll also need a quench dish, a charcoal block, and a pair of wooden handled tweezers. You're also going to use a non-combustible surface. The torch we'll use today is a propane tank coupled with a Bernzomatic 1500 torch head. To oxidize your piece today, you'll use liver of sulfur, and to clean it up you'll use a pro polish pad, and if you'd like you can throw it in the tumbler to give it extra added shine and to strengthen it further. The materials you'll need today are 10 gauge fine silver wire and large holed beads that are made from sterling, 100% copper, or PMC beads. You do not want to put on here crystal beads, semi-precious beads, pearls, anything that will burst when you put them under the flame. Before we get started, we need to discuss some safety issues. The first thing you'll need is a non-combustible surface to work on. You'll need safety glasses, and you'll need to have a fire extinguisher handy. They also want to work in a well-ventilated room. This is the torch we're going to use today. It is a propane tank coupled with a Bernzomatic 1500 torch head. And what you need to know about this is that working with the propane, you need to have a well-ventilated room, and you need to always be aware and deliberate when you're fusing. If you get a little bit sleepy or something like that, you just need to go away from fusing for a while and come back when you're ready, when you're focused again. I'm going to show you how to take this off, because what happens, you just want to screw this off, and what happens is you'll hear a little pop at the end, which is okay, little pop, and there's a little smell. So try and, get that smell going away. That's the propane. Okay, so I have my safety glasses on, and I'm going to show you how to put this together and then how to ignite it. You're just going to take this, it's simple, place it in here and screw it in until it's tight. And then to turn it on, this is the gas. So you're going to turn it to the left and you can hear the gas coming. And then the igniter is the red button down here, where you're just going to strike it, and there's your flame. To turn it off, it's a simple twist of the gas going to the right, and what you want to make absolute sure of is that you look here. There's sometimes a little sneaker flame that just stays on there, and you want to make sure to just blow it out if it's still there. After you're done using the torch, take care to place it to the side and not touch the nozzle. It's still going to be hot for a good while. Okay, so now I'm going to build an oven. I have 2 fire bricks, one which I've kept whole and one which I've cut down into quarter-size pieces, but I'm only going to use 3 of them. You can use the 4th if you want, but this will suffice. And then I have a charcoal block. So how I'm going to do this is place the large kiln brick there and simply make a little place for that charcoal to live. Put it right in here. And this way it will retain the heat that you so need for this project. After you're done with the fusing process, this has acquired quite a bit of heat, so you'll want to give it a good while to rest before you disassemble it or go near it. Before we get started with the fusing process, I want to talk about a couple of design options. You can either make a plain bangle that's just textured, or you can add large holed beads onto the bangle to act as floaters. You can use a variety of large holed beads. These are 5mm inside diameter beads, and these are 7 or probably 10mm. What you need to use though is sterling silver or 100% copper, not copper plated, or you could even use a PMC bead. Beads that you cannot use in this project are pearls, Swarovski crystals, semi-precious, or anything that cannot withstand the heat that we will subject this wire and metal to. Before we get started, we have to talk a little bit about sizing. My wrist is 6 inches, but that's not the part of the hand that we have to worry about. We have to worry about the largest part of your hand, the circumference. So a bangle should slide down over your hand, and it should be snug when it goes over the largest part of your hand, but it should not be uncomfortable. This bangle is the perfect size for my hand. It slides over, it's a little bit snug there, but when it gets down to, comes right over the wrist, it's just perfect. Let me show you an example. As I measure the circumference of the largest part of my hand, it's 8 inches. We've already established that the widest part of my hand is 8 inches, but you don't want you to cut your wire at 8 inches. You want to subtract 3/4 of an inch and cut 7 1/4 inches. As you hammer the wire out, it will grow. We're using 10 gauge fine silver wire today. It's a pretty large gauge, so when you go to flush cut it, you want to use a Xuron Maxi Shear flush cutter or any heavy duty flush cutter. When you go to flush cut, you want to use the flush side or the flat side of the cutter towards the work. And always make sure to cover the other side so that the chip of metal does not fly into somebody's eye. There is a nice flush cut, and you'll want to get the other side to be flush cut as well. As you can see here, I have placed all the large hole beads onto the wire before we start the fusing process. You can see here that I have bent the wire around so that the 2 flush cut ends will meet. I've used my chain nose pliers and hands to do this, and I am not concerned with the form at this point. Before we start the fusing process, I want to show you a little oven that I've built. I have 2 bricks of fire brick that I've cut one down into quarter pieces so that I can build this little oven. The goal of this oven is to retain a lot of heat. When you put those large hole beads onto your wire, they act as a heat sink, and they need an incredible amount of heat to actually fuse the piece. And fire brick is also known as kiln brick. Here we have a piece of charcoal. I need the charcoal because it has a higher reflective quality than the kiln brick does, and it's going to retain a lot of heat that I'm going to need to get those bracelets fused. Before you fuse, you want to make sure that the wire is completely flat and flush to the charcoal brick. If the join where you're going to be creating the fuse is not flat and it gets hot and the metal flows, it will flow and slump into the fire brick or the charcoal, and it will not be a good fuse. In order to get this flat, I'm going to use my rubber mallet and my bench block to flatten the piece. For this project, we need a much higher heat than the blazer will provide. So I'm going to use a propane torch. This is just a stubby camping size propane tank and a Burns-O-Matic 1500 torch head. It's pretty easy to put these together. You simply want to screw the head into the top of the propane tank. And I don't have it here, but there was a cap on the top of the propane tank that I took off before. So you have to take that away. And there you go. Pretty simple. So now I'm going to show you how to turn this on. We have dimmed the lights in the studio so that it's easier for you to see the flame. Right here is the gas. You simply want to turn this to the left. You can hear the gas. And the red button down below is the striker. It gives you a pretty big flame. To turn it off, you want to simply turn the gas to the right. And always make sure to check the tip. Sometimes it leaves what I call a little sneaker flame, and you want to make sure that is absolutely out. So this is my complete basic setup. I have my non-combustible surface. I have my oven built from fire brick and charcoal. I have my propane tank, and I have a quench cup and wood-handled tweezers. So now I'm going to talk about my approach to the fusing process. Because these bangles take so much heat, I want to capitalize on the heat built up in this oven. So I'm going to do them in a batch. I'm going to start off with a plain bangle, and then I will move to fusing one with the large holed beads on it. And then I will fuse that one, finish it, and then fuse another one using the large holed beads. Okay, so now we're going to start the fusing process. Remember that this is 10 gauge fine silver wire, and so it's a big gauge wire. So we've got the propane tank. I'm going to turn that on. And we have dimmed the lights for in the studio so that you can see it better. We're going to go ahead and turn on the propane tank. And so you can see the flame. You want to work past the cone of the blue flame. You want to work right here in the hottest and cleanest part of the flame. I am going to take this and go around and around to heat up this fine gauge silver. It's going to take a little while, so you have to put on your patient shoes and just wait for it to work with you. That's why we built the oven, to kind of retain that heat. First, you can see that the wire is turning to a matte finish. After that, it will turn to a gold undertone underneath that matte finish. After it turns matte, you will have a red tone underneath the matte finish. And once you start seeing that red tone, you want to start focusing on the join. Now, the idea is that you have to have the heat equally distributed through this whole piece, so you have to keep reminding the rest of the piece that it needs to be hot. So go around the block again, and then go back to the join and focus on the join. When it gets ready to flow, one side of the join is going to turn to a mercury color. Then you'll want to slowly draw the flame to the second side and get it to flow, and then back and forth gently to get them to fuse. So we still have a little bit to go. It's still at the matte stage, still waiting for a little bit of the red. There's some red, there's the mercury, and flow. Nice. What I'd like to do while it's still warm is double check the back side and make sure that it has fused, and it is fused. Carefully with these tweezers, my second pair of fingers, do not pick up hot metal with your fingers. Use these tweezers, take them and quench. Turn off the propane, and what I would do next with the tweezers is choose one of the bracelets that's prepared with the large holed beads and get it on your charcoal brick. Remember that we want to use that heat that we've already created, so touching the brick is out of the question. It's already hot. Place those large holed beads in the back corner of the oven, and then turn on your propane tank and start again. Now what's going to happen is these large holed beads that are so beautiful right now are going to become fire scaled and look pretty terrible. So you want to try to avoid them. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, but you still have to get them heated up because they're acting as a heat sink. But you want to try and stay away from them, and they're going to look bad, but that's okay. It's all going to work out in the end, so no worries. But I'm going to kind of focus on the wire out here rather than continuing around on the beads. I do want to stay away from them as much as I can. You can see that they're already heating up, and I do not want those to flow at all. Now we've got the matte color and the red underglow. Oh, we're starting to fuse over here. Let's bring it across. Nice. Double check that second side. There's a little bit on that second side. If you see a line at all, you want to touch that up because it's not a complete fuse. Just a little bit, and you want to capitalize on that heat. Then off with the propane tank. Yes, I'm so excited. Nice. Love that sound. Now I'm going to go straight to the third one. Capitalizing on that heat again with those large holed beads in the back. Get them back there. Make sure this is flat to that charcoal. And here we go. Or not. So again, this one I'm focusing mostly on just the wire, relying on the heat of the oven to heat up those beads. And I want to say that if it looks like the metal is shifting a little bit, oh boy, I'm getting a lot of, there we go, fused, done. That one came kind of fast for me, so if you see it flowing, the only places you really want to flow are the join. So if you see that happening, get the fuel away from the rest of it, because the rest does, right down here it flowed a little bit and it did not need to. So I had to just take it away. Double check that second side. Nice. Sweet. Always remember to quench the tweezers as well, because they are also taking in that heat. And then let this oven cool, because it is hot as blazes. So now you can see that we have 3 bangles in process, and you can see the fire scale on the sterling beads. And note that this was a PMC bead, and it's made out of fine silver, so there's no fire scale on it. So with the fire scale, right now it doesn't look so pretty, but you're just going to have to trust me. It's going to come out just fine. So now I have just the plain bangle on the bracelet mandrel, and it's a metal bracelet mandrel, and I want to get it into form now. Up until now we have not been concerned about its form, but before we start hammering we want it to be in the form of a circle. and I have it just resting here on a sandbag. I'm just going to pull it down on the mandrel as far as it will go, because it's so soft from the fusing process that it's really nice. It works really nicely. And there you can see I have 7 inches marked here on my bracelet mandrel. That's the size I started off with. I want to talk about where we are and where we're going to go. Right now we have a fused piece of wire that's around 7 inches resting here on the bracelet mandrel. What we need to do now is start to hammer that and form it and get it to go all the way down to this size. This size fits me, and that's the ultimate goal for me. But we're not going to do that in just one pass, or we're not going to do that all in one step. We're going to have to bring it down here for the first pass, and then by that time the metal will be work hardened, and we'll have to anneal it, and then we'll finish up on the second step, the second pass. To illustrate this, this is the same piece of wire that was on the mandrel, and now it's on my hand, and clearly it does not fit. So it will need to be hammered, and it will grow on the mandrel while we're hammering it out, and ultimately it's going to come down to this size. Now when you get it down to this size, the sizes may vary a little. You want them to pass over the circumference of the largest part of your hand comfortably, and they might be a little bit bigger if they have these large hold beads on them. The thing is, the sizing is up to you. You're responsible for it, and for each step of the way you have to check it. So now we're going to start the hammering process. What I want you to see first is that this join right here fused, but it's not very pretty at this point, and I don't care because we're just going to hammer it and we're going to make it pretty. I'm going to use this planishing hammer to start the hammering, and I'm just going to start by going around the mandrel. This is going to be a process, and you're going to take baby steps and go all the way around, and you can see it already growing. So as I'm hammering, I'm also trying to keep the wire formed to the mandrel, so I'm pulling it down as it grows. This is the other thing about this join. If your piece was not fused in the first place, then it would break. And that's just actually your good news, because it wasn't a good fuse, and you just need to go back to the fusing table and get it refused and start the process over. So if it's a good fuse, it's just going to stay a good fuse. I'm giving it a little bit more oomph behind the hammer to get it to move a little bit faster. And this hammer imparts a little bit of texture as well. So now I have come down to the first pass. You don't want to continue going because we've work hardened the wire, and now it needs to be annealed so that it will become soft again and more malleable. As you can see, I've marked the metal with a Sharpie on the side here and over here. Once it's annealed, the Sharpie mark will disappear and I will take it away. There's no intention of getting this metal to flow at this point. Done. Now the metal is nice and soft again and ready to work for you. Quench that, quench your tweezers. So now that we've come through the first pass and annealed, we're going to work from the first pass to the second pass, and I want to get it down to this size. Now for you it might be that you anneal once or even twice. Typically I can get it to come from here to here in one pass, but it's okay. You can theoretically you can anneal all day long just to get it to move. As the hammering process proceeds, we are working on both the forming and the sizing of this piece. So this is a good time to double check the size of the piece on your hand, see where it's going, and constantly remember to continue to double check that. So here we go. I think at this point I had better check that size, see where I'm at. I want to show you a couple of things right now, what this bangle is looking like. It's a little bit imperfect in the texturing. It's just got, you know, it's organic. I also want to show you that it has raw fused edges, and we're going to address both of those things. And now you can see that I've brought it down to the pink tape on my mandrel and the bracelet fits. For you, after you get your first one done, you're going to mark your mandrel after you've found out the sweet spot. So now I have brought out my bench block and my sandbag and placed the bracelet on top of it, and I'm going to address these raw edges. Now, I don't like it just pristine. I want to have texture on all my pieces. So I'm going to use an assortment of hammers, and I will talk about them as I texture this piece. The first one is the narrow rounded raising hammer that has a curved edge right here, and it'll give a nice dimpled feeling. You can see here the beginning of the texture from the narrow rounded raising hammer. If you want a nice striated line, you can use the short sharp hammer. There you can see the short sharp texture. Now I'm going to use the ball peen side of the chasing hammer. That's going to give you a nice little pebbly texture. And there is the pebbly texture made from the chasing hammer. So really you can use any of these texturing hammers to finish off your piece, and I'm going to just mix and match all these all the way around. So the next step is to texture the front side of the bangle. And what I've done here is stabilize the bracelet mandrel on the sandbag so that it won't go anywhere, because stamping is going to be one of the options. So at this point, we don't want this bangle to grow any more than it has to. So we're going to use a gentler touch in the hammering. All we're going for is a little bit of texture. So keep that in mind as you progress. I'm just going to give this a little bit of this texture. Get a little bit of striations with the short sharp. And now I'm going to show you the stamping. Normally when I'm stamping, I have my metal on the bench block on the table without a squishy pad like the sandbag, but we need that for the bracelet mandrel to stabilize it. I have chosen a little bitty spiral, and I'm going to, the rest applies. Keep this as vertical as possible. And I have a 1 pound brass mallet here, and just give it one strike. And if the whole thing doesn't show up, it's okay. We're just trying to give it a little bit of texture, a little bit of excitement. I'm going to use the asterisk stamp, same thing. I like that asterisk stamp. It never fails me. It just makes me a happy girl. And now I'm going to use a tiny, tiny dapping punch. This makes a nice, good indent. I'm going to mix it up with that asterisk again. Yeah, the dapping punch goes pretty quick. I like it. All right, there you go. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about sizing and forming the bracelets that have the beads on them. Because they take up some of the space on the inside of that bangle, it's not going to come down as far on the mandrel. So, and that's okay. What you want to do though is allow that space so that when you start hammering, start hammering up a little further up on that mandrel. And of course, you're not going to hammer over the beads, you're just going to move them around as you get the entire piece. And the rest of the process is the same as the first bangle. What I want to show you here is that this bangle fits me, and it is nowhere near down to the pink size of the other classic bangle that didn't have any beads on it. These beads take up some of the space, and so always check your size, and it may be that you would want 2 sizes on your mandrel. One to show just a plain one and one with the beads on it. So while you're texturing the side of the bangle and getting rid of that raw fused edge, you'll want to keep your beads off the block so you don't hurt them. Okay, so now we have our bangles to size and textured, and it's time to oxidize them, and then we'll clean them up. So now you can see that these have been oxidized with liver of sulfur, and now we need to clean them up. I'm going to start off using a pro polish pad by sliding across here. Oh, yes. So now you can start to see the texture that you've put into the metal and show off those beads. And at this point, these beads are going to come around. I'm going to get that fire scale off of them, and it's going to be beautiful. And now you can see that they have been cleaned up with the pro polish pad, and they are fabulous. Now that we've completed our classic bangle, sometimes in class I get these questions and I want to share some answers with you. Some people really want to try to use their blazer to get this project done, and it's just not hot enough. Butane torches, they just don't get hot enough. So stick with my plan, you'll be happier. So some people have asked, how do I get those that fire brick quartered? If you don't have a husband with a bandsaw, then you can use a jewelry saw with a 2/0 blade and just cut it, divide it down the center, and then divide those two in half. Okay, so once you get your bangle to size, you're done annealing. You're done. You just don't want to make it soft again, because if you stamp it or hammer it or texture it further, it's just going to keep growing and then it'll get bigger. But if you do get one that's a little bit big, put it on first and put a smaller one on after that to hold it in place. Thanks for coming to class today. I'm Janice Berkebile, and remember, you can't make just one.